Hey everybody, welcome back to Everyday Journey. Today we're going to finish up the Grinder Slider Jig. For those who don't know what that is, it's basically for a angle grinder. We're going to mount it up on here, and this is going to allow it to slide back and forth so that we can make some nice straight cuts. We've just about got it done. There's a few things that we need to do still. One is to mount the grinder. Second is to actually mount a spring up here so that we can raise and lower this and that it'll stay up on its own. And then probably put the feet on it and figure out how to make it fireproof down here so that while we're grinding and stuff we won't actually get so we won't actually catch anything on fire, because this is wood. So let's go ahead and get started with, I think what we're going to do is use the same track that went with the garage door opener, and we're actually going to use that to be able to mount the grinder. I was looking, your handle on the grinder actually, I think it's an M8. Not sure if it's 1.5 or 1.25. It does look like fine thread, so it may be 1.25. And I looked through all my bolts everywhere to try to find some. And it turns out that this piece that goes for the wheel, where the chain went around this for the garage door opener, actually has two, which is what I need, bolts that fit it. One is for the adjustment right here, and the other is what actually mounts the wheel on. So we're going to actually take advantage of that and use those because I don't have any other ones. So here's the other one right here. So we're going to take those off and reuse those, and let's get started, see what we got to do. Alright, so the grinder is actually going to go up here like this, which seems kind of backwards, except for the switch is right here in the front, so that works out. But we do want to have it like this because that way it'll throw the sparks away from us. Let's see. What I'm going to do is actually use this piece here, and I've already used one for the top and bottom of this. Check out my previous videos if you want to see how I made the rest of this. But I'm actually going to use this piece right here. We're going to cut it in half on the top side of it, and then take advantage of this round part right here. Whatever we have left there will actually make up the difference in the fact that this right here where the handle mounts is not exactly flat. So hopefully the curved part down there takes up the space, and whenever we bolt it on there it will actually stay nice and straight. And then we're going to use that piece to actually mount to the track section, which we're going to mount this way. And so we're going to end up having one piece that goes like this from the grinder over. We're going to bolt it right there, and this piece right here we're just going to screw right to the side of this. So. Once that's cut and tightened down, I think that'll work pretty well. So the next thing we got to do is actually mount this piece. We want to get it back as far as we can. Let's see. So somewhere around right here, if we can, that'll give us the ability to cut all the way back to the very back edge. So I think what we got to do is go ahead and mark this. We're going to mark our wooden piece somewhere right there because we're going to have to chisel some of that out. And we may even have to go ahead and counterbore this a little bit further so that, or grind off the back end of this bolt, which actually may be easier, so that we make it flush here so that this can fit completely over the top, and we can bolt this to it flat. So then we'll have to do another piece on the front side of it, but we need to do this piece first. That way we can bolt this up and see where it needs to go. First thing first, we got to go ahead and chisel that out, make sure that bolt right there is flush. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and cut this bolt off too. putting this in the hole. This is just an Allen wrench. We see we got about, I don't know, maybe close to 3/4 of an inch. So we'll go ahead and mark the bolt at that same length, and we'll go ahead and cut it. I marked it for where I'm going to cut off the top edge of it so that it's not sticking over too much. And I also marked a couple of places where I think are good for holes. That way I can actually mount this to the handle portion of this. So I'll do that off camera, and then I'll get back to you whenever it's time to go ahead and try to mount this to the angle grinder. So that way we can get our measurements for the piece that actually comes across, because we're going to have to cut that too. So let me go ahead and do those, and I'll get right back. Alright, so there we go. All the holes drilled, everything the way it should be. Just using this right here to try to get it as close to square to this piece as possible. And now we just have to pre-drill our holes real quick. Now we need to actually figure out where this is going to go. So we still have a considerable angle caused by this, but it shouldn't be that much of an issue. Looks right now like we need to go probably, well, basically right here as far as where this is going to mount at. The only issue with that is that we actually really need to go a little further, because this wheel is going to get smaller and smaller, and as is, it isn't going to cut down very far. We want it to make sure that it's cutting below the edge of the table. So we'll probably go ahead and go, I'll say at least a 1/4 inch below that, and maybe even further. What we need to do at this point is go ahead and drill our hole through so that we can mount this bracket. Right there looks good, and I'm going to go ahead and mark my line for where I want this to be when I'm completely finished. So now we got another hole to drill, and then once we do, we can mount it up here and then drill this one also. this in place, mark our hole. And now we got to drill that one out. Alright, so I drilled these out for 5/16. I'm putting a 5/16/18 bolt in. And I'm going to go ahead and use a nylock nut on the other side. And on this, we're going to have to lift it up in order to bolt it in. We do have an issue with the fact that it's not perfectly in line in this direction, front to back. That's not a big deal though, because once we put this other bracket on here on the other side, it'll be able to pull this straight. We may or may not have to slot these holes a little bit, that way we can put it in the right position, but again, that won't be a problem. We just have to get it lined up at that point. Right now we have to go ahead and bolt our other piece on the other side. That way we can put the other bracket up here and see where it needs to go, because we're also going to have to trim out the wood just for it, and then figure out where everything's going to bolt up. So I'm going to go ahead and put this bracket on real quick. Alright, now that that's in, we can go ahead and take our other piece of garage door track and place it up here, see about where we need it to go. So this time, I think we're going to go with this line right here that I just marked, and now I get to carve that out just like I did before. Alright, so you probably can't see it, but I did take this back off here, chisel out a notch, that way this piece can fit in. And it does fit in. So my next thing I need to do is go ahead and mark some holes on this bracket, or on this this bar that I just put in here. And these are just the holes that I'm going to put through so I can mount this bracket, or this bar actually, to the wood, which will be the handle. While I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and mark the very top up here, if you can see that, so I can cut it. That way it'll be flush with the top. And so now I got 6 holes to drill and to make a quick cut right here. So our piece is all cut. We've got the 6 holes that I needed, and I started to, and I figured to go ahead and show it, pre-drill these holes a little bit while this thing is in place. So what I'm doing is just kind of pre-drilling or marking the hole, and take it back off and drill them, and then go ahead and put our screws in. So the next things we need to do is mark here so that we can actually cut that excess off of there. We could leave it, it doesn't really matter either way. I just don't like to have anything, especially anything sharp, because I quickly just cut that and didn't worry about deburring it. This one right here I actually was smart about it this time and actually placed it at the bottom of the bracket whenever I had this up. So that right there should be fine, it shouldn't be sticking out any. If nothing else, I do need to deburr this, but I'd like to get that cleared out of there so that I can just open it up a little more at the bottom. if you ever needed to cut anything big, it'd be nice to have some clearance there. So, and that may be an issue up here too. Not really sure. Alright, so I've got this thing bolted back up there. Everything in place. Go ahead and mark my hole so I can drill the last mounting bolt right here. Now, I'm trying to pull this over as much as possible to make sure that it tries to straighten this out some, because like I said, it may not be cutting exactly straight. So we're going to pull it just as far as we can, and if we have to later, we'll go ahead and slot these holes a little. But for now, we need to mark the last hole. So I'm just going center on here, or what looks like center anyway. I've had to loosen all this up just to be able to get this on here, but it should go on there now. So now it's bolted up. We got our up-down motion, got our front-back motion. We do need to make sure this stays up, so we're going to go ahead and drill a few holes up here to be able to mount a spring. As far as springs go, this is one that I have no idea what it went for, but it was in my collection of stuff here, so we're going to go ahead and use that. It's not enough to be able to keep this up, so go ahead and drill a couple more. Now it wants to stay up, so I think we can go ahead and keep it there because it's really easy to pull down. That's what I want. At the same time, I want it to be able to stay up, and if that becomes stretched or whatever, I can always move it a little higher. So the next thing we're going to do is actually define where this thing cuts at. So we're going to just turn it on. It's plugged in. We're going to turn it on and go ahead and make a cut down through here. Just really light. I just want to see where the line is. Well, that looks pretty straight. And that's about, I made it go all the way to the very back here, so that's about as far as we can actually cut. Which gets us pretty close to actually just past here in the back. So that works out good. Next thing we got to do is actually just go ahead and cut out a place down through here, because we need to do something to be able to make sure that this doesn't cause a fire, even though I don't think it's going to. We got to definitely make sure. Well, I've decided about the maximum depth of cut based off of the swing of this, and actually pulled it all the way to the end. Brought it down as far as it goes, and it looks like it's going to go just through the first layer of this board that I've got. Granted, I've got two boards put together, and that's the whole reason why, is because I knew I'd be cutting this. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, cut that out, and I'm actually going to use this. This, I have no idea what the heck this was from. Something I took apart a long time ago, and as you can see, it's even got the remnants of my very first attempts at welding, and of course I didn't do a good job at all. but we're going to go ahead and use this and put down in to here so that it's got a channel, a metal channel for all the wood or all the chips to go through and all the sparks, so hopefully we don't cause a fire. So we're going to go ahead and take this out and cut this off to the length, and then we'll work on this channel that we got to put in. Alright, now I've just got it centered over the top of the line that we made earlier, and flipped it over, and I'm going to use this as a straight edge to be able to mark each side. And then we're going to just remove the top again so that we can use a table saw to go ahead and cut this out. That should be good enough. Now, one of the things I noticed is that I made my track a little bit too wide. How am I going to fix that? I'm actually just going to go ahead and take this and bend it apart a little bit. And actually I'm going to bend it apart wider than this right here. That way whenever I actually put some screws down through here, it'll pull it down nice and tight. And then I may or may not just, well, I will have to do something, but I think I'm going to take the grinder and I'll mark a line here and cut off the excess on top because it's sticking up a bit high. We want it just below the surface on here. So all I did here was I took a socket, just picked the size I thought would work, went ahead and hammered it in all the way down through here, and that spread it apart. And then after that I went ahead and cut at my line with the, and you can see it's not that straight either, but went ahead and cut it, and then I went and drilled one hole here at the end. This hole was already here at this end, and it fills the space pretty well, and I think it's going to work. I think that's going to stay just fine. My next thing was I was going to make a handle out of this on this piece of wood, so kind of like a regular saw, you know, like a hand saw. I was just going to carve out a place to be able to grab hold of it. The issue is though is that my hand will end up hitting this rail, especially as it goes all the way forward. So instead I think I'm going to go ahead and just put a handle on it, and I've got this looks like well, I think it's an actual handle that went to this entertainment center. If not, then it's a cabinet one. I'm going to figure out where's a good place for it here and go ahead and mount it to the side of here. And to make up the difference for where this part of the, well, where this is wider, this wood is wider, I'm actually just going to use the nuts that were already on the screw that were on there. I also am going to have to put a washer too, just because it's about that deep. So we'll go ahead and drill our holes through here and mount our handle, and I think for the most part we'll be done except for trimming off the excess of this. So I think the first hole should go somewhere about there. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this on so I can see how it works, because I don't want it to be, I want to get the angle what feels comfortable. So I'm going to go ahead and put my screw through. And I know you can't see this much. I'm going to go ahead and put my handle on. And actually I'm going to take that right back off real quick because I put a washer on the other side, but the bolt's really not long enough for it. So what I'm going to do to remedy that is I'm going to counterbore on the other side here. There's the hole I just drilled. And now we just need to counterbore into it some. I think that's far enough. And now we can go ahead and put our bolt through. And then we'll put our washer and our two nuts on the other side here, and then go ahead and screw on our handle. And now with that actually on there, we can see what's the most comfortable angle. Right now it's just the top bolt in. And I think that right there works. So I'm going to go ahead and just outline that real quick and then go ahead and drill a hole through. And now we've got a counter bore again from the other side. There we go. So now we have a working handle, and we just have to trim off the excess. Well, there you go, everybody. We now have a working sliding chop saw. And everything here, maybe with the exception of a couple of bolts or something, was all recycled materials. Anybody can make one of these. As you can see, whenever I was going through all this, it was taking me a long time to describe things, to decide what I was going to do, and everything was kind of rough. And that's kind of what you get whenever you're making something on the fly. I didn't have anything other than an idea in my head of how to make something like this. And I just started looking at the parts that I had on hand and figured out how to put them together to make something work. Could this be better? Yes, it could be. Can I make it better? Yeah, I think I can. There's a few things that I could do to make it a lot better. Things like getting the sliding action a little bit better. One of the things I've got is it's dragging a lot here on the top, and I think I'm going to try to grease it and see if that helps. If it doesn't, then maybe I'll go with something like a I think it's high density polyethylene. It's basically it's like the same material they make out of cutting boards, or make cutting boards out of. And I could probably just pack the inside of this top part that slides over this, and that'll give it a nice clean, and I don't even need to do the whole thing. Probably maybe the front and back of it, and that's it. That'll take up a space, keep it from doing this rocking action that it's doing. And that's kind of what's causing it to really dig in, is the rocking action. There is a couple of modifications or a couple of things I'm going to add to it. You're going to have to check out the next videos on that one. And I think basically we need to put a rail back here so that we have a nice square surface to be able to put everything up against. And if I can, I'm going to try to make it adjustable too. That way we can kind of get an adjusted angle so that we can cut angles on here too. So maybe even a clamping device on here, kind of similar to what you might find on the chop saws now, and you know, something that can adjust in and out so it can make up different dimension for different materials, and then maybe something with a quick release as well, so that it can quickly just pull it off and go with the part. So, but we'll see how that goes as I get into it. But for the most part, it's pretty much done. If you had a bunch of materials like I did, and everything here's scrap, you can make something just as well as I did. So it may not look great, but it does work. And that's what I need. I need something that works, because I've got some projects that I can use this for right now. So as always, guys, I appreciate you watching. Got any questions about it, go ahead and send them my way. You see anything I could have done better, send that my way too, because this thing can always be taken apart and redone. So I'd love to hear from you all. And until next time, y'all take care.